When I was 8, my family moved to a sprawling Victorian manor in Savannah, Georgia. I remember being enchanted by its towering spires, intricate woodwork, and the air of mystery that seemed to cling to every creaking board. My parents thought it was perfect, a dream home filled with stories waiting to be discovered. For me, it was the attic that held the most allure. It was an overcast afternoon when I first ventured up there. Dust motes danced in the light filtering through a narrow window, and the scent of aged wood and forgotten things filled the space. I rummaged through old trunks, stacks of faded books, and antique knickknacks until something caught my eye, a portrait propped against the far wall, covered in a thin layer of grime. The boy in the painting wore a crisp sailor suit, his face pale and his expression oddly serious for a child. His eyes, so piercingly blue they seemed almost alive, held mine as I stared back. "His name is Charlie," I found myself saying aloud, though I had no idea how I knew. Later, when I told my parents about Charlie, they laughed it off, thinking it was just my imagination. At first, it was harmless fun. I'd tell them stories about Charlie, about how he lived in a house long ago and missed having someone to talk to. They smiled indulgently, probably assuming I'd read it in one of my books. But then things started to happen. It began with small incidents. A teacup shattered on the kitchen floor, picture frames knocked over, toys rearranged in strange patterns. When my parents asked, I told them the truth as I knew it. Charlie told me to do it, or sometimes Charlie did it himself. Their indulgent smiles faded. They started to exchange worried glances when they thought I wasn't looking. One evening, I found myself back in the attic, drawn to the portrait like a moth to a flame. Charlie didn't like the way he looked, I thought. His sailor suit seemed stiff, his face too pale, his eyes too sharp. I grabbed some old paint I'd found in a corner and began to work, adding color to his cheeks, softening the angles of his face. It felt natural, as though I wasn't in control of my hands. When my dad found me, he was furious. I remember him grabbing my arm and dragging me downstairs while I cried, "He doesn't like how he looks." That night, I woke to the sound of footsteps. Soft, measured, and deliberate. They echoed through the stillness of the house. At first, I thought it was my parents, but as the sound moved closer to my room, I froze. The footsteps stopped just outside my door. I held my breath, waiting for the knob to turn, but nothing happened. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The following morning, my parents decided to sell the painting. My mom called an antique dealer, who arrived that afternoon to take it away. As he carried the portrait out, I felt an overwhelming mix of relief and loss. Charlie was gone, or so I thought, but things didn't go back to normal. That night, the footsteps returned, louder this time, as though someone were stomping angrily through the halls. My parents heard it too. My dad checked every room, every lock, but found nothing. We all slept with the lights on. A week later, the antique shop called. The shopkeeper sounded shaken. He claimed the painting had moved locations overnight, from one end of the store to the other. And the boy, he added hesitantly, his expression, it's different. Angrier, I think. My mom hung up without replying. We never saw the painting again, but the house felt quieter without it. Still, there were traces of Charlie that lingered. Sometimes I'd catch myself humming a tune I couldn't remember learning. When my mom asked, I'd say, "Charlie taught me." She'd go pale and change the subject. Years later, when I look back, I wonder, was Charlie ever really a figment of my imagination? Or had we, in our curiosity and carelessness, awakened something that was better left undisturbed? Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. Some stories, like the ones hidden in the shadows of old houses, are never fully told. I was 9 the summer my parents decided we needed a break from city chaos, as Dad called it. We packed up the old station wagon and drove to a campsite nestled near a remote, fog-shrouded lake in Oregon. I remember the road twisting endlessly through towering evergreens, their shadows stretching across the gravel like ghostly fingers. It was supposed to be a fun getaway, a chance for my parents to unwind and for me to roam free. But I wish we'd never come to that lake. On our second morning, I woke early, the air cool and heavy with mist. Dad was fiddling with the camp stove, muttering about stubborn matches, while Mom was still bundled in her sleeping bag. I wandered down to the lake, my pockets stuffed with smooth, flat stones perfect for skipping. The water was eerily still, its glassy surface reflecting the pale sky above. I bent down, chose a stone, and flicked it across the water. It skipped twice before sinking, sending soft ripples across the lake. That's when I noticed something, just a faint shimmer, like light catching on the ripples. I froze. The ripples didn't fade. They deepened, swirling together, forming shapes, faces. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, distorted reflections of trees or clouds. But then I heard it, a whisper, so faint I barely caught it over the sound of my own breath. "Mason!" I stumbled back, my heart pounding. The voices grew louder, overlapping, pleading. "Mason, help us, please." I dropped the remaining stones and ran back to the campsite. My parents barely looked up when I told them. Dad chuckled, calling it an overactive imagination, and Mom just told me to stick closer to camp. But the voices stayed with me, echoing in my mind all day. By evening, the mist around the lake seemed thicker, more oppressive. I couldn't stop thinking about the faces in the water. When I finally crawled into my sleeping bag, I tried to convince myself it was just a bad dream, but deep down I knew it wasn't. That night, the voices returned. Louder, closer. They weren't whispers anymore. They were cries. I don't know what possessed me to sneak out. Curiosity, guilt, fear, it all blended together. I grabbed the flashlight from the tent's flap and crept toward the lake, the crunch of pine needles under my sneakers sounding deafening in the stillness. The lake looked different in the moonlight, its surface shimmering like liquid silver. As I approached, I saw them, children, dozens of them, standing at the water's edge. Their forms were pale, almost translucent, their faces a mixture of sadness and something darker. One of them, a girl with long, dripping hair, stepped forward. "You came?" she said, her voice soft but hollow, as though it came from far away. "I'm Clara. We need your help." I wanted to run, to scream for my parents, but my feet were rooted to the ground. Clara pointed to the water. "We're trapped. The lake won't let us go." Trapped. I croaked. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. She nodded, her eyes glistening. "We drowned here. All of us. Nobody came to save us. And now," her voice wavered, "now we're stuck." I glanced at the lake, its surface eerily calm. "How can I help?" I whispered, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Clara hesitated, then reached for my arm. Her touch was icy, and when her fingers brushed my skin, a sharp, searing pain shot through me. I yelped and pulled away. But when I looked down, I saw the faint outline of her hand imprinted on my arm. "Fire," she said. "Fire will break the lake's hold." I didn't understand. I didn't want to understand. But something inside me, a force I couldn't explain, compelled me to act. I raced back to camp, grabbed the lantern my dad had hung near the tent, and returned to the shore. The children were waiting, their faces filled with hope and dread. My hands shook as I fumbled with the lantern, my fingers slipping on the cold metal. Finally, I lit it, the flame flickering weakly at first, then roaring to life. "Are you sure this will work?" I asked Clara, my voice trembling. She didn't answer. She just stared at the lake. Taking a deep breath, I hurled the lantern into the water. For a moment, nothing happened. The lake swallowed the lantern, the flame extinguishing with a faint hiss. Then the water began to glow, a brilliant, otherworldly light radiating from below. The children stepped forward, their forms dissolving into mist as the light enveloped them. "Thank you," Clara whispered, her voice fading as her figure blurred and vanished. The lake erupted in a swirling vortex of mist and light, and I stumbled back, shielding my eyes. When the glow finally subsided, the water was calm once more. I stared at the lake, my chest heaving. The voices were gone. When I finally returned to camp, my parents were still asleep, oblivious to everything. I crawled into my sleeping bag, my arm aching where Clara had touched me. In the morning, I found a scar, a pale, ghostly handprint burned into my skin. I never told anyone what happened that night, but sometimes I still hear whispers when I'm near water, faint and distant, like echoes of memory I can't escape. The lake of lost whispers had let its victims go, but it had marked me as a reminder, and perhaps as a warning.